Hey, everybody. Good evening. Happy Friday, April 3rd, 2026, and appreciate you all being here so much. Hope you had a good day and hope you have a great weekend. For us here in Georgia, at least our part of it, we have spring break, so the kids are going to be off school, which they are very excited about, to put it mildly. So glad that they get a break. I'm very proud of them and their hard work. So spring break week starts officially right now. On that note, my time with them, of course, is split, and my time with them, which will be, hey, Shell, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My time is split, so the first part of spring break, I'll be with them like all the time, so it'll be just a little bit harder. Although there'll be some times I'll be jumping on because they love their Minecraft time or their whatever YouTube time. So they love doing that and doing arts and crafts and things like that. So there'll be some times that I can jump on in the next few days and just have a good time. But I'll also probably focus on a little bit of a mixture where maybe I take them out to a park, and I told them there'll be times when we're out at the park or somewhere fun, and I'll step away 20, 30 feet, and I'll do a little video for the channel, and that's part of my way of working, but also celebrating with them that they're having some time off. But then middle of the week, back to just me, so I'll crank out the content double time later in the week next week. But so glad to be with you tonight. And I'm going to keep doing the ones that we do at night when they go to bed, so that won't change whatsoever. Tonight's topic is obviously near and dear to my heart for obvious reasons, but I think it's one that I'd love to just hear your thoughts on too. When we deconvert, it's amazing when you think about the ramifications of like what you're doing is changing not just your life, but basically potentially generations to come. Really, you thought as a Christian, it's all about my legacy. What's my heritage that I'm leaving for the next generation? And that doesn't really stop being an important concept. It's just what defines a good heritage and a good legacy changes radically. Just everything you do. But when you deconvert, it changes your thought life, your worldview, but it changes the climate of your home. Everything is different. The things you would have said to them, the things you would have not said to them, things you would have done or not done. All of it changes. It changes what you want to pass down to them, and you get, really, you get to a point where you're just like overwhelmed with the beauty and responsibility of what it means to raise kids on this side of deconversion. We've talked a lot about how in the last few weeks about how it's a lot more than just losing doctrine. You're losing your entire former worldview, entire former belief system, and seeing how so many things were upside down and backwards. And a lot of us were raised in this, where authority was very heavy. The word of God was everything. Your bodies had certain rules that how you were to see them and manage them and dress appropriately. And parenting becomes one of the most fascinating parts of this dynamic of how you raise kids becomes their inner voice. How you speak to them, how you treat them becomes their inner voice. Do they speak kindly? Do you speak kindly to them? All that stuff. And how are you preparing your children for this larger world? What messages are you sending? What messages did you used to send that you now don't send? And you switched your perspective and your wording. How do we get children to the point where, how do we get our world to the point where our children get to inherit a more dignified, safe, beautiful, spacious place to grow up and have their minds just enraptured with the beauty of this life without all the garbage of mythology and the worm theology. So I think it's a beautiful thing. And I've got a lot more to share, of course, as part of my direct reason I deconverted, my kids' influence on me, and a lot of things I did for them. And I'll share some of those as we have people come and go. But I do just want to make sure that I put the link in here. So if anyone does have time to come on, you can come in and share your thoughts. This can go anywhere. I did want to mention, I'm thinking, I realize you could take this question a couple different directions. I'm thinking of a couple main ones, and you can kind of go a little bit off, but if it's way off of this, steer it back. I'm thinking, how does deconversion affect what you say to them, and versus what you used to say to them, but what you say to them, how you treat them, respect for them, questions of autonomy, questions of discipline options. How does that all change for you when you get to a point? And again, if anyone wants to jump in, you're welcome. If you don't, I've got plenty to say. But that's the thought behind this: is how does this shift us? And how do you see your responsibility as the raiser of these children? But how do you bring about a much, 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 much better experience for them now that you've left the mythology? So that's my thought. When I say this, when I left Christianity, there were several things that just immediately triggered, and I thought, if this is mythology and this is irrelevant, then this, then this, then this, okay, then this. Just like it all triggered. It was like domino effect. I was thinking very, very quickly, maybe evolution is true. Oh, actually, it probably is true. Maybe the earth and the universe are old. Actually, probably they are very old, because there's no other reason for me to believe that they're not except for the Bible. So a lot of things crumbled very quickly. And let me read a few comments here, and I'll finish that sentence in a second. Philip, hey, Tim, how's the 49-year-old gorgeous young man really? I wish. I feel like an old man, but you know what? You know, what did they say? You're young as you think you are, or act your age. What is it? Young at heart, all that. Something in there. But yeah, I got my hair cut. I told the lady, I go to a barber that it's really sad. She's from Iran. And her whole family's still in Tehran. So she's like, yeah, my family's just getting bombed like crazy. Very, very sad, but lovely lady. She's a Muslim, but we talk a little bit about religion. She's like, I just wish I don't need everyone to be Muslim. She's like, you can believe in God or not believe in God. I just want everyone to be nice to each other. She's one of the nicest Muslims I've ever met. Lovely woman. And she does a great job. I always tell her, like, look, just cover up the bald patches and take away the gray, and we'll be fine. So anyway, yeah, I got my hair cut, and hopefully it keeps me from looking too old today. But thanks for the compliment. I hope I can live up to that. Shell says, the inner voice, yes, healing that myself so I can break that cycle with my kids. That's a great point, Shell. That a lot of this is not just generically how do I parent, it's specifically how do I break the cycle from how I was parented. Great point. I love that. Shell says, I had so much anxiety, though I had to be perfect, and I don't want to put that perfectionism on my kiddos. Yeah, well, true. That's a big piece of this, and so much of the hypervigilance we talked about recently, the sense of, if you want to obey God, you're going to be just absolutely sold out for him, and put the sin away and just be sort of not even human, just be a super holy person. And it all leads up to, if you're not perfect, God's going to be like looking down at you and saying, I love you, but I'm really, really disappointed in you. And that perfectionism goes to the deepest core of us sometimes. Susanna in Scotland, probably on the way to bed soon. I know, Susanna, you've had a rough week and a long week, probably a long day. So I know you may not be able to stay the whole time because you're probably halfway dozing off to sleep or something. It is 5 hours later there in Scotland, but thank you so much for joining us for whatever time you can. We're so glad you're here, and please feel a big hug from us. Hope your weekend goes well. She says, hello, my lovely friends, all the way from Scotland. Thank you so much. And Shell, hi, eyes. Hugs all the way from St. Louis. Noelle says, well, none of my kids realized or cared that today is Good Friday, so that's something. Hey, you know what? I honestly didn't even remember that. I mean, I knew it, but I didn't even think about that. That's a good point. It's a Good Friday and no one even cares. That's awesome. Yeah, my kids will ironically be with me on Easter. I did offer it so that they could be with the other parent on Easter, since their religion is they're a big deal to them. And they said no, this year they had other plans. So at this point they'll be with me on Easter. So my Easter will be with the kids, and I've got a little bit of candy, not much. Number one, it's costs money. Number two, they don't need it. They don't need food dye and sugar. But I've got a little bit. I've got some leftover plastic eggs, which I'll put the candy in and hide for them a little bit. So we'll do something. It's unfortunately going to rain here all weekend, so I can't really hide them outside, but I'll hide them different places inside, and I'm sure they'll still have a good time. So let's see here. Shell says, I love that, Noel. I didn't mention it to my kiddos either. I love that they don't even really know what that is. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Hugs, Shell, Fiery, Philip, and all. Thank you so much, Susanna. Hugs back to you. So again, if anyone does want to join, you're welcome to. But anyway, going back to what I was saying, when I deconverted, and I forget where I left off, but that's okay. When I deconverted, it was like this. It was just like it just hit me certain things. Evolution might be true, age of the Earth, all this, and we're related to the primates. Oh my goodness, we have a common ancestor. And one of the things that hit me right away was, oh snap! I need to get my kids out of Bible prison. I need to get them out of Christianity. Like they're at that age where they're still super malleable, and they're about to get their heads stuck in the mentality of you're a sinner. You need blood magic to be right with God, and if you don't, you're going to burn in hell. And either way, you're a wicked sinner and disappointing God, and God can see in your head, and He's judging you. And life is all about this ancient Canaanite demigod Yahweh. It's all about this ancient Greco-Roman mystery called Christianity. Like, that's what I'm about to put them into. Oh no, that's what I've been doing. What the hell was I thinking? Why couldn't I see it? And it immediately, like, it changes. And one of those thought processes for me, and again, I'll shut up if someone joins here. I can cut this off like Link Sausage, just chop it off right there. But one of the things for me was I immediately thought about autonomy. Autonomy became pivotal for me at that moment. It first was about thought autonomy. I thought they should be free to, number one, know everything about any religious claims. Where did these claims come from? Where did the book come from? Or do we even know where the book came from? Do we know who edited it, who wrote it, who the authors really were? All that stuff. Do they know how church history went down? Do they know what the existing mythologies were of that day? Let them have all the information, then let them make their own decision. And that was just, it was like, of course, like what else would you do? Like nothing else makes sense. You wouldn't force a child to believe what you believe, because you wouldn't want a Muslim to do that. You'd want a Muslim to say, to their child, this is what I believe, but I want you to pursue the truth. And you'd hope as a Christian, they'd come to the truth of Jesus, right? And you'd hope Buddhists would do that. Please, my kids respect and appreciate my Buddhism, but pursue the truth where it takes you. And of course, as Christians, hopefully you'll leave Buddhism and come to us, to our side. We want everyone else to do these things, but not our kids. Our kids need to be, you get glued down, super glued down to the floor. And to realize, to give them that gift of saying, no, this is for everybody, everywhere, at all times. Everybody gets to have a chance to have thought autonomy without any fear of judgment or hell. You decide if this makes sense. If it makes sense and it works for you, great. Just don't hurt anybody. If it doesn't make sense, great. Go where the truth takes you. And that was one of the biggest things of how I raised my kids. And I remember saying, we did this thing where I'd say, pretend you have like a space helmet on, but it's like a bubble. You could blow the bubble out with the soap bubble, and you could put it around your head, but someone could push into the bubble. And I used to say to them stuff like, if I come to your bubble and I want to change it to make it more like, push it around and squish it and do what I want with it, I said, you are free to take my hand, metaphorically, of course. You're free to take my hand and say, get out of my bubble. Get out of my bubble. This is my space bubble around my head. We did that over and over. Remember, whenever I was in the car with them, we'd maybe go out to the park or something on a Saturday morning, and I would say to them, hey kids, who has the power over what you believe? And they would know. They could say, I do. Say, well, do you have to believe like that? Do you have to be an atheist? No, we don't have to be an atheist. Do you have to be anything else? No. No one gets to tell us what we have to be. And they have the power. And that went deep. That went really, really deep in their heads. Really deep. So that's the starting point for me. And the second piece that went right along with it was, if you believe in respecting their brains and their thoughts and their autonomy of worldview perspective and beliefs, if they have the authority over their own thought life, then for Christ's sake, give them the autonomy and safety and security over their body. Spanking and any other kind of assaults is abuse. It's physical abuse, and it's dead wrong. Get yourself to the point where you connect those dots and say, I will not attack their minds and I will not attack their bodies. It's just not an option. And I got to tell you, it was one of the best decisions of my life. There's been a lot of things that, where either I've made a good decision and it still hurt. I've made a good decision and it was rough to deal with the consequences. Not ever letting physical discipline become an option for me ever. I mean, no matter how belligerent they get, no matter how much they're like, grumpy or whatever, talk backish, anything, for them to know that you cannot push daddy's buttons enough. You could push my buttons all day long. You will never push my buttons enough that it will be even a remote consideration that you'll get a spanking or a smack or anything. Nothing. Your body is 1,000% safe under all circumstances. There will never, ever, ever be a time that you can push me that far and I'll suddenly think, you've been so bad, now you deserve to be whatever, spanked, or you deserve something physical. Take it off the table. Just take it off the table. It'll be the best decision you ever made. Take it off the table. It's not worth it. And if you don't see it now, you'll see it later. It's wrong. If you wouldn't do it to an adult, don't do it to kids. It's wrong. And I strongly encourage you to have that as a starting point. Thought autonomy and body autonomy. Let them protect their thoughts and their worldview and beliefs. Let them come to their own conclusions and let their bodies be utterly safe in all circumstances. That's my injunction. That's my heart. It's my passion. And honestly, it has been painful. Some of the consequences of standing up for that have been beyond painful, more than I'm going to ever say publicly, beyond painful. The consequences of that choice. I would make it again 1,000 times. Don't hit children. Don't do it. Let's see here. I missed a few comments. Susanna says, I definitely don't promote prayer anymore. I get them to thank the people who put the work and effort in for our food, clothing, toys, etc. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Good stuff. Yeah, it's amazing how we would joke about that a lot with, I think when the stuff with ICE started, the attacks on immigrants, where it was like, everyone's been saying, thank you, Lord, but really we should have been thanking the immigrants that we just kicked out of this country. Like, how stupid are we going to get here? But it's crazy. But yeah, just to thank the people that actually did the work, or to thank the doctor. Like, wow, what a miracle this cancer drug worked. Well, thank the scientists who did the research and the doctor that administered it. Good stuff. Yeah, same Suzanne. One of the things that I think is important for how we raise kids as well is to give them the freedom from the worst parts of Christianity. And again, I'm glad to take a back seat here if anyone jumps in. But when you look at Christianity, one of the things that's so prevalent in so many deconversion stories is people say, I realized this is a nasty. Go commit genocide, go kill people, go take slaves, go take the little girls who haven't had sex yet for yourselves, make them your sex slaves or your wives, steal the land, on and on it goes, and stone people to death. This is a nasty God. And then in the context of how Christian theology evolved, the hell stories, where you get to a point where the hell stories are like literally saying, now that God has said, I will drown my children in the flood, which I did. I'll send serpents to bite them, which I did. I'll let them all die in the freaking desert, which I did. Now I'll let you all burn in hell, you little sinners. It's like, at what point do we realize Yahweh is a psychopath? And to say, I'm going to free my kids from the horror of this and not try to paint it as something good. Susanna just jumped in. Susanna, if you're ready, I'm going to bring you on the stage, and you can take over and tell us your thoughts. But let's see here. You're give me a thumbs up if you're ready to go. Thumbs up. All right. There's Susanna. Great to see you.
Hello there.
You have not been on this channel in like visibly in a minute. It's been a while.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
It's good to
I
see
think
you.
last time I was doing poetry, wasn't I? But we've not done
Probably,
that for
yeah.
a while.
Yeah, you
Mm,
did this short. You did this short that we posted, and then you did the poetry. But yeah, we gotta have you back on. But it's great to see you tonight.
thank you.
And I
I
love your
was.
background, by the way.
Oh yeah, I had to. Well, it was apt for what you were doing. So, right. Well, my tuppence worth for bringing up children differently is I've actually had to learn a lot about neurodiversity. Before, when I was a Christian, we were told to pray it away, treat them the way that they should be treated. Children should be seen and not heard. Obviously, my neurodiversity children were more difficult than that to keep still and quiet at church. Then I was felt, I guess, punished and a bad parent for not being able to keep them on tool. But then with life with autism and ADHD, I've learned so much in the last 3 years and been able to start validating my children. And they're actually starting to get assessed, and some of them are getting their diagnoses. And I'm starting to be their advocate and let them find their voices so that then they can learn about what they've got and then they can then speak up for themselves. But they could never have done that in the Christian, well, where we were anyway. We were always told, your children are, well, actually one of them, which is Ethan Ross, my eldest, he was actually taken to the front and prayed for the demons to come out of him. And the
Wow.
poor boy, all he was autistic and dyslexia, and had a lot of frustrations because he couldn't always get and understand life. So yeah, big changes, big changes.
Hmm. Can I ask, when you look at that experience and you compare it to your childhood, how do you feel it bring any sense of healing to know that you're breaking some of those cycles, or is it more just like heartache looking backwards? How do you process it?
Well, obviously, I then it's highlighted some of my neurodiversities. So, and then how I was treated growing up, I guess. Again, I was either ignored, unvalidated, and so I'm not going to have that for my children because, yeah, there is a lot of pain there if you don't get heard or seen or understood and just told that you're overly emotional and that yeah, just everything that comes with ADHD. I'm very forgetful, very my time management wasn't great, and I just couldn't get it better. And with all the will in the world, I asked God daily to heal me, to have me produce the fruits of the spirit, and couldn't understand why it wasn't happening. I mean, I showed love and I was joyful and peaceful and patient, but I just couldn't keep a tidy home. And I've got now an understanding, and I've got tools, and I can keep that in place now. And I'm getting coaching, and I've done my cognitive behavioral therapy, as you know, my emotional intelligence, which I would never have been able to do as a Christian. And then all that filters down to be a better parent, a better person for me, which I've just asked my children before I came on actually, how have I been different? And the kids have said I've been less strict. I still pull them up, but I don't pull them up at the time that they're doing their issues because I know now that they need the space or they need fed or they just need regulated, whether it's space or whether it's hugs or whether it's some fidget toys or, you know, um, sometimes they're overheated, sometimes it's a label on their clothes. But I would never have searched all those lists prior, and it's a huge difference for them. And they're
Mm.
grateful. And actually my daughter's just said, you're doing amazing with our little brother, who is the most neurodivergent of them all, you know, hyper ADHD, which can cause, and I've done my research and I've bought things online that have helped, you know, just everything like that, like weighted
Mm.
blankets and I mean, but there's nothing quite um stops him coming for that last spoon cuddle, you know, before he goes to sleep. And I've got that understanding that's what he needs now, as opposed to that's not going to be something I'm going to push him away and say, get to your own bed. They just need what they need at the time that they need it, and that's what I'm a parent for, and I've signed up for it, and I've got to walk the walk.
Mm. I love it. I'm cheering you on inside as you speak.
Mhm.
I think one of the coolest things that you're sort of touching on too is the idea that we used to interpret any bad behavior as evidence of sin.
Mm,
And I mean, that is this just between the strictness and the judgmentalism, the lack of empathy, and just the lack of understanding of childhood development. It's really staggering that that's what we used to do. But the
mm,
beauty of being able to say, I can look at a child that is quote unquote misbehaving or whatever, has a bad attitude, and instead of labeling it as sin, to truly like try to be a detective on their behalf and say, let me figure out what it is that's causing you hurt. I mean, we know that truism that hurt people. And it's like, so what is causing you this pain, this anguish that makes you feel uncomfortable, that makes you feel threatened, it puts you in fight or flight or whatever, that makes you feel like it's something's not fair about life or irritating you, and you need to just lash out at us or respond in such a bad way. Like we're sad that that children aren't always doing the right thing and ruining our nights, whatever, ruining good memories that they could have otherwise had a beautiful memory of. It's just it's tears or it's fighting, it's bickering. It's like it's such a shame, it's such a loss. But at the same time, you step back from it and you say, I understand that there's a real good likelihood that the reason you're acting this way is because something is really hurting you. You're really
mm,
wounded. And my job is not to proverbially or literally beat you up over it. My job is to directly try to be in your shoes and try to listen to you and just to hear. And what a beautiful thing. 'Cause I've noticed when I do that with my kids, they don't always like appreciate it at the time. They're just they still want to stay grumpy and stuff like well. But then like especially my oldest one, Owen, who's 11, he'll come back later, like even just 5 minutes later, be like, "Daddy, thanks," and he'll thank me for being patient
mhm,
and understanding it. And it's like they're starting to put the pieces together that when a parent is patient with the kids when they're disobeying and not labeling it sin, but just saying, "You're clearly struggling. How can I help? Or how can I listen?" It makes a world of difference. And I think you're alluding to that with some of what you're doing. And man, that's beautiful. Man, that's beautiful. That's
yeah,
where
it's
the golden nuggets come in.
definitely the older ones are thanking me for and are kind of shaking their head, going, "How on earth are you doing this, Mum?" Yeah, because you know I'm doing it on my own now as well, which wasn't the case at the beginning of my deconversion, or the beginning, because actually tomorrow I wanted to come on as well because tomorrow marks my third year out. So it was 3 years tomorrow that I said, well, it's today for me, of course, because it's 1:30 in the morning, but yeah.
That is
So it's
awesome.
so 3 years today that I said I don't believe in God anymore.
Hmm.
But boy, was that hard for my fixed mindset Christian lifestyle, and even for myself, never mind the kids. So
Hmm. I'm just curious, how long was it between when you said that to yourself and when there was any kind of conversation with the kids about that change? Did you let them know pretty quickly or wait a
to
while?
be honest with you, I was quite naive, and I did let them know too quickly.
Yeah.
I didn't let it play out too much. I actually haven't set foot in the church since, although I did let the kids go to the classes in the midweek for a little while after, because that was their choice. And I just said I wasn't going to do Sunday again, but if they wanted to go to the kids club on the Wednesday, then yeah, of course I would take them. And they did until they decided they weren't.
Yeah. That's
The more
awesome.
we spoke about it, and the more, because I delved in for about 18 months prior to that, and it was that longer process before the day that I said I'm out. But it took a good 18 months from start to stop. Yeah.
That's awesome. I agree with the idea too of letting kids go sometimes, because it's like, if once they understand that it's mythology, and there's enough education there for them to see through and to understand the psychopathic nature of Yahweh, like, would a good father burn his children? Would a good father drown his children? You get far enough through that process, going to vacation Bible school or some kind of fun little thing, it's like, it's not a threat. Like, why would I be threatened by, or my kids be threatened by something that's just clearly nonsense, and they know
Nonsense.
it's
Yeah.
nonsense and they see through it. So yeah, I'm like, hey, if you want to go, have fun, see your friends, enjoy the free food, and have a blast. But like, it doesn't threaten me anymore. And
Mm.
I'll obviously have some questions for them if they want to go to everything all the time, 3 times a week. But what's the reason for this, and how do you interpret it? But at the same time, I'm like, they know the mythology and they know the psychopathic nature of Yahweh. Once you cross those two bridges, it's really hard for Christianity to look acceptable anymore. And they were there 2 or 3 years ago, so there's even more water under that bridge. But I'm just so glad that you're doing that. Do you feel like things are getting better at all in terms of the overall dynamics?
Yeah, yeah. As I say, as my children are getting their diagnoses and feeling validated, then and the understanding that they are, again, that's the other thing I wanted to allude to, and I think I have done in my comments in some of your live streams before. But again, I've had to buy a lot more books back because I bought a load of books for the natural history to find out that everything that's said over 10,000 years I used to put in the bin going, nope, that's wrong, that's wrong. I can't teach the kids that because the Bible doesn't say that. The Bible doesn't allude to millions of years. It was 6,500 to 7,000 years, you know, as you do. But
Yep.
yeah, so yeah, I've managed to go around the charity shops and get the natural history books again and give a true um look of how the world was made rather than what we were told in the Bible.
Hmm. I was gonna say too, I imagine too, I know you've got, several girls. It must be nice too
Hmm.
knowing that the purity culture stuff is not gonna be wrapped around their hearts, in that tight way. I mean, I know there's some ways culture can still do it, because Christianity has infected the culture so much, but just in terms of the really intense, like, nonstop preaching over and over from the pastor and the youth pastor and all that, it must be nice knowing that they're not gonna get that shoved in their throats, that there's some kinda walking temptation to men, and that somehow they're almost, right on the verge of being bad just because 'cause they've got a body. And it's so nice to think about that just not being part of the equation, isn't it?
Yeah, all three of my girls are one of them definitely is just about to be a young lady, and another one is a young lady already, and the other one's just quickly speeding up, racing up to her two sisters. So yeah, I've got my hands full. They're all
I
they're
bet.
all looking very lovely.
That's
I've
awesome.
just gotta put a wee bubble around them, I think, for a little bit longer because they're only 14, 10, and 8.
Okay, nice. We have a few comments that I think relate to you, or even for you. Let me just read them real quick, and then you can give us, I know it's getting late there, so give you a chance to say a final word and then get to bed. But, let's see here. Um, from Noelle, "Yay, Susanna. Great to see you here."
Hey.
Shell says, "Thought if I clung to God and behaved better and did better, I would avoid punishment, but there wasn't much rhyme or reason. My parents' issue, not mine." Yeah, for sure. Philip says, "Did or does conservative Christianity actually teach that unless you are somehow supernaturally born again, then you get sent to hell when you die? That's blackmail. What's pig blood or hogwash?" Yeah. I mean, Philip, I don't know if you're asking that rhetorically, but just to answer it in case anyone else wonders, there are some versions of Christianity, of course, that do not teach that in that way. I would say most of the ones that I was exposed to, and I think Susanna would agree with this, that the ones we were exposed to would say, yeah, that's exactly correct. And that's the core issue, is that you have to have mercy and grace and righteousness attributed, or applied to your account, as it were, judicially. That's what justification is. You can't work your way up to salvation. You need someone else's righteousness to be applied to your account to cover you, like a blanket would cover you or someone's coat would cover you. Christ's perfect righteousness covers you, and then you, still being a sinner, are declared righteous, and then eventually when you die, God actually makes you righteous. He makes you glorified, but until then, you're covered. So yeah, there's a lot of people that would say that and say if you don't have that experience of being born again, then basically you're still stuck in your sin. And what does sin deserve? It deserves death, eternal death. And God has created a place to, basically make sure you pay forever for that. So a lot of us believe that. A lot of us were taught that. Shell says, I have ADHD, so could never measure up. So
Feel that. Feel
heartbreaking.
that.
Noel says, Susanna, as a mom of 2 neurodivergent children, I found that the secular world is much more forgiving than the Christian world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even just once you take the word sin out of the equation, you just say, I'm not going to call you a sinner. That alone is like night and day different. Janine says, why do religious extremists refuse proper care for disabilities so often?
Yeah.
It's true. And at this point, at least in the United States, they're really doing damage to a lot of people. I've seen so much stuff especially against trans people very recently. Even like in the last week, there's been some rules that have changed where all kinds of lawsuits and criminal things can be lodged against trans people. It's just, I feel so bad for the trans community right now. They're really hurting a lot. Not saying they're in the category of disabilities, but just religious extremists want to refuse proper care and respect for anybody that's not like them. Anybody that's not like them is just, if you can't fit it into, you're a sinner and you need Jesus. If you can't fit in that category for them, they want to attack you, whether it's disabilities or a different sexual orientation, anything like that. It's crazy. Shell says, Janine, I think they think if it's behavioral, it's that they're not close to God or influenced by the devil or demons. So untrue. Awful. Yeah. Yep, exactly. And Noel says, neurodivergent or not, weighted blankets are amazing, and all my kids and myself have them and regularly use them. That's awesome. I don't know that I've ever used one, but I don't know if I probably got something in my head. If I got someone to look at my head enough, they'd probably find something wrong there, I'm sure. But the thing I do, that's the thing that helps me, my weighted blanket, so to speak, is I have to have a ton of white noise at night, like a ton. I literally sleep with 6 fans on in the room. And it's just, if I can tell if one of them isn't working, if there's only 5 going, I can't sleep. It's weird.
Oh, wow.
Shell says, agree about the weighted blankets or vests. My daughter uses them now. Got her OT, and that's been amazing too. About to start CBT therapy with her next week. What is OT? Do you know what that stands for?
Occupational therapy.
Oh, of course. Thank you. Good job. About to start CBT therapy with her next week. I know what that is. Very cool. Awesome. Congrats on your freedom, from Janine to you. And I don't know the exact date for myself, but it was very close to 3 years ago. Susanna and I might share a deconstruction day. Nice.
Oh, yay. Go us.
Yeah. Noel says, allowing our children to be taught Christianity is almost like feeding them garbage that could even and probably will be poisonous. So shifting how we view them and what we teach them turns everything upside down. Yeah, absolutely. And then Philip says, as a rejoinder to my previous comment a couple of nights ago, when you gut it all out, Christianity, what you're really just left with is humanism in disguise, concealed under a veneer of God language. Yeah, in some ways that's true. Yeah, a lot of Christianity. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying some ways, because obviously humanists will accept everyone as somebody from the race, the human race, whereas Christians won't, to be fair.
Yeah.
But just quickly, my father asked me what I am now, and I said a humanist, and he says, "Oh no, a relationship with Jesus is the way." And I just said, "Well, Jesus was a humanist if you want to believe the stories that we're told, but he was a humanist."
Yeah, in many ways.
If you go by what the Bible says about him.
Yeah, some of them. It's interesting though. In many ways, have you ever read the article by Dr. Richard Carey where he basically says Jesus was a dick? Have you read that one?
No, I haven't.
It's a great one. I have to I'll maybe post it.
I'm in the middle of Sacred Cows at the moment by Seth Andrews.
Okay.
Is it Seth? Yeah.
This whenever someone tells me I want to follow Jesus because he was so nice to people, I bring up this article. It's not called Jesus was a dick, but it's basically that in a nutshell. I'm gonna bring up the article here.
I remembered some of the stories though, like, and the fact that he so yeah put all the demonic things into the pigs and got them to run off the cliff. And that was the livelihood of a whole village. So yeah, you can
Yeah,
imagine the repercussions of that.
yeah, and Dr. Carey, of course, he's the man, the myth, the legend. If anyone doesn't know Dr. Carrier, you need to know Dr. Carrier. He is amazing beyond words. But he just goes on like on and on and on and on and on, proving right from the Gospels that Jesus was a dick and an asshole. And it's like, yeah, like liberal Christianity that wants to say, I just want to follow Jesus because he loved everybody. Like you're literally not reading your own scriptures. Like, what are you talking about? He was an asshole, and he promoted so much hatred. Jesus was full of hate. He talked.
You proved me wrong there. Then he was a humanist.
Oh well, I mean, you could argue some passages. I mean, it's like which passages do you go with? Because some passages probably do say that. And then he calls a Phoenician woman a dog, and he says almost everybody on the planet is going to go to hell. He says the way to destruction is very, very wide, and almost everyone goes there. The way to life is very narrow. Almost nobody gets in. And he says all kinds of stuff. And he says, if you've had a bad thought about a woman, before, it was just if you actually did the act, then you should get stoned. Now he's saying if you've even just thought the thought, you're bad enough to get stoned. And he does all kinds of things, says all kinds of things that are just nasty. But one of the worst ones to me is he says, I've literally come to break families apart. He says, I've come to bring a sword. I've come to divide father against mother, children against parents, brother against sister. Like, I'm like, you've come to divide families? Like, are you kidding me?
But I know it's cruel.
This article, he basically just keeps saying it 30 different ways Jesus was a dick. It's a great one. Please read it when you all get a chance. Anyway, maybe one more from Philip, and then we'll let you find a final word. Philip says, perhaps the Jesus character, Matthew 25, meant by those being sent to eternal punishment, Lord, Lord, didn't we do this for you? He actually meant Christianity itself. Yeah. I mean, it's possible that people that said, Lord, Lord, didn't we do this for you? Didn't we cast out demons in your name? He, of course, didn't know about Christianity, but I think the concept would apply. I don't think he meant to start a religion. If he did have anything that he intended to do, he probably meant to give people the passion to get back to original, Yahweh worship and to obey the Torah. But, if you want to just sort of expand it out in a creative sense, yeah, Christianity falls in that same category for sure. Well, Susanna, I know it's late there, so you're probably half dozing off here as we talk, but was there anything else in your heart about just how you've changed in terms of how you see your children or speak to them or act towards them, or just how you interpret the whole parenthood process?
Oh, definitely. Learning just to not be as angry, I guess, when they don't follow God's ways, and just being. I think I'm a kinder, happier, more lenient, and I think the kids enjoy that environment a lot better. And yeah, I can't really articulate this time of night, but yeah, it's a much better atmosphere, and there's a lot more autonomy. And I think you shared that. I'd rather they chose what they would like to learn about, and we can do their English, maths, and everything along with their specialized interests, rather than because I home educate as well, so it's all that, and it's nothing to do with the Bible, nothing to do with it's just we've said goodbye and we've meant it, and it's great.
Yeah, that is awesome. Did it feel like a big turning point for you, when the dots connected, that sin isn't part of the issue in the truest sense? I mean, we could say, oh, you did something that was disobedient, or that just really disappointed me in one sense, or you hurt your sibling, you hit him. It's like, but that's sin nature. That's not like the worm theology stuff.
I mean, I've told them that I want them to enjoy life as long as they're not hurting another and maybe teasing another for their choices, because that they're learning that some of them might even have a different identities at the moment. They're teenagers, they're learning about themselves, so they're going through a transition of, am I this or am I that? And I'm giving them that freedom to do that without judging. And I'm learning alongside them of what that looks like. All the different pronouns that are around just now, why not just let them find who they are and what will make them happy.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's an amazing thing to think about.
Sorry, that was my child.
Otherwise,
Blowing kisses in the background.
I looked down for a second, so I missed it.
I know. I
did
was
they
doing
want?
that, but I was just
Okay.
wondering if you guys were thinking I was blowing kisses at you.
Oh, to our crowd tonight. Just gonna say real quick, I think it's amazing to think about how harsh and judgmental and absolutely like nasty
That's the
you would.
oldest too.
Okay, you come on, wave.
Anybody want to go on the live stream?
I'll wave.
Oh no, I'm not showing them all my washing. Because just behind here is all my washing. Dunk, dunk. Sorry.
Hey, I've got piles of laundry too. No judgment here. Just to say, if we were Christians, and it's like you just think, if that's the path my child takes, how judgmental and fierce we would have to be and say, I mean, you do hear those stories where eventually they just write off their own children.
They show the door, yeah.
Yeah, all because you say
you're
I'm
under this
different.
roof. You abide by these rules, and you're only allowed to be classed as male or female, and you're only allowed to be attracted to the opposite gender. Yeah.
It's. I'm so glad
that
I'm so glad we can just let our kids grow up and decide what's best for them, and not do these horrible things.
Support them.
Yeah, support them. Yeah, I mean, I think for me at this point, it just feels like that I'm not quite. We're not at the stage where we're discussing any of that yet, but I think just there's like the seeds that are planted of thought autonomy, body autonomy. I figure like as long as you let them have the safety in their own mind and safety in their own skin, a lot of other things are going to fall in place. It's going to fall in place.
Yeah. And just teach them what is safe to be out there in the world, and not just allow anything and everything.
Yeah.
Boundaries.
Yeah, exactly.
Which we were not told. And honestly, I was boundaryless and probably, arguably, still learning my boundaries right now. And that's me at 50, So.
Yeah, well, you don't look a day over 35, so we don't believe it.
Right.
We don't buy it. One last comment.
48 maybe.
two last comments. Shell says, thank you for sharing. Noel says, thank you, Susanna. I miss your face, lady. One more quick. Mark says, it's great to have such a happy atmosphere. We've said goodbye and we've meant it, and it's great. Yeah, absolutely. Here. I'll drink to that.
Okay, I'll let you go.
Thanks, Susanna. Have a great evening. Great night.
Okay, you too. I'll be on. Stay in. Okay, bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Thank you so much, Susanna. Great to see you. I know it's late, so it's a sacrifice to be on, and sort of what is it? Almost 2 a.m. Holy smokes! You're a better person than I. I don't make it past midnight. I mean, midnight's like my cutoff. I try to be a lot earlier than that, but 2 a.m. I'd be a basket case for a week. That's my old man sense side talking. Philip says, some people say Jesus was a hell preacher. Others say universalist. Others say pacifist. Others say not. Others say he taught tithing, others not. And Morris say, what? I'm a busy guy. Time to move on. Yeah, I think, Philip, the point that I would just add to that is that you're exactly right on target, because the issue is that that's what the point of these different gospels is to present different sides to this guy. We know of at least 50 to 60 different gospels, but there's some really good arguments that I've seen that say originally there were probably hundreds of these things, hundreds of gospels. People arguing for different aspects of them. I mean, what does that tell you? You're going to find one where he's a pacifist. You're going to find one where he's not. You're going to find one where he's saying, this is all about fighting, and others where he's saying it's all about love. It's amazing. It's just that's what that's what happens when you don't understand what was happening in early church history when they were first creating this stuff. Is it's not what we thought it was. This was not a history of a man. These were people making up stories. And that's why you can have arguably probably hundreds of gospels, because they're making shit up. Anyway, if anybody does want to join, let me pop the link in, bring it to the bottom so you don't have to go scrolling for it. But if anybody wants to join, you're welcome to. If not, I've got a few more thoughts to share. And I won't keep you all night long, but we've got plenty of time for a few more thoughts from me or from you or both. I've talked about the thought autonomy. One of the things I wanted to just say, I think this is something that's, again, sometimes you just got to hit the low hanging fruit, because it's like this is what, that's what we're at. We're saying there's a low hanging fruit, but we didn't understand that low hanging fruit as Christians. And when we deconverted, it's like, duh, it's right in front of you. But I mean, one of them is, it's again, low hanging fruit, simple as can be. The thought changes of, I'm not here to control my children. I'm here to steward them. I'm here to help them. I'm here to assist them. I'm here to provide for them. But so many of us, grew up being taught and then eventually doing parenting by way of saying, your role as a parent is to help them learn to submit. Your role, you're there to get your children to understand submission, to do it quickly the first time with no talk back. And I think after we deconvert, it feels so different. We're not ruling our children, we're protecting them. And we're protecting someone who's developing under normal human development, stages. And the goal is no longer, I want to insist on compliance. It becomes, I want to help them mature. I want to learn mutual trust and resilience, and help them develop an inner strength and thought process and inner clarity, so that I can trust them eventually as a young person and as a young adult eventually. I'm not here to control every thought they have. I'm not here to control every activity and every action they take, every choice they make. I'm here as a steward. And, we used to say in Christianity, your children don't belong to you, they belong to the Lord. The Lord gives you children for a short time. You are the steward, in a sense, of your children, but they belong to Jesus. And to say, no, let's try again. They don't belong to you, but they also don't belong to Jesus. They belong to themselves. They belong to themselves. And our goal is to give them the autonomy so they can fully inhabit their bodies and their minds in a way that is full of integrity by the time they're adults. They know themselves, they're safe, they haven't spent years in fight or flight, they haven't spent years in mythology and lies. They have simply an indoctrination and propaganda and all that nonsense. And on the note of indoctrination, I think it's obvious too that we become sensitive to the dangers of indoctrination. You know that what happens when you say the same verse. You say John 3:16 to a kid, not once or twice or three times, but 10, 20, 30,000 times by the time they're adults. They hear all these verses, some of them, the big ones like John 3:16 over and over, but even the other lesser known ones, you hear it enough. You hear the Christian platitudes and cliches enough, all this loaded language, then the appeals to fear and hell and all that, and the pressure of authority. You will obey your parents as unto the Lord. And just children absorb that authority and that trust so much. It is an incredible privilege and responsibility to be overseeing a child's development, and to realize there's a danger in that. Anybody could take your authority over a child and manipulate them. And that's so scary. And what a beautiful thing, though, to go the other way, to create a safe environment where you can present ideas openly without threats of, hey, this is an idea. If you don't believe like me, you're going to burn in hell. Like, no, we're not doing that. Just, I want you, my child, to have access to ideas. And I'm not trying to imprint you and seal it in your head and, scald you with my ideas. I'm just saying, this is what I think, but you need to pursue the truth the way you see it in your life. And man, oh man, once you open that door, it just, and never go through it again, backwards. It makes such a difference. It really does. I meant to say too, with the body autonomy thing I spoke about before, with like not spanking them, I think a big thing too that Susanna talked about a little bit towards the end there was the implied part of body autonomy is consent and boundaries. That privacy and it's a beautiful thing to give kids the privacy and even the autonomy to say, I don't want a hug, or I don't want to be tickled, or whatever. Like, it's up to them. It's their bodies. If they don't want the hug, they don't want to be tickled, whatever it is, leave them alone. They want privacy, give it to them. These become central values of their personal dignity, their body dignity. And that goes so far in terms of the long-term process of when they get to be older, to enter a stage where sexuality becomes part of their thought process and experience. For them to know that for years they've been saying, this is my body and no one's going to invade my space unless I tell them to and give permission to it. Anything painful or invasive, wrong, uncomfortable, all the above, they have the power and the voice to say, stop it. That's a gift. That's a huge gift, massive gift, and a fearful thing to not have that in your life. So I think a lot of us too, we realize that as we're raising kids, that when you do drop things like spanking, which I talked about already, but beyond just the physicality of the corporal punishment issue and the abusiveness, you learn to stop basing morality on fear. If you don't do the right thing, then I'm gonna beat you up. Basically, if you don't do the right thing, then God's gonna get you. If you don't do the right thing, you're gonna burn in hell. Like, you don't want them to be afraid all the time. There should be a sense of helping them develop a morality just based on the desire of wanting to love each other. I sing my songs. I'm going to sing for you for a second. You may probably want to put your fingers in your ears for this, but I do a lot of songs for my kids. And one of them is just sort of like a very low level way of teaching this. And it's just a simple words, but it goes like this. Today we loved each other well. Today we loved each other well. Loved each other well. Loved each other well. Today we loved each other well. And we just go through it. Today we love each other well. Today we blessed each other well. Today we forgave each other well. And I think we add a few others sometimes, but like, that's our motto. And I've got another song that I'm working on that they know some of the verses to, but it's not finished. I won't sing it yet, but it's just, we are the family that loves to love. We're the family that loves to love. And on these messages go. They get deep in your psyche. And I love that. And I'm going to bring up another song if I can find the words to it. But these are the things that make a difference. These are the things that make such a difference. Bear with me one second while I find this. Where am I? I have so many notes. If you all could see my notebook, I use Microsoft OneNote. If you don't use Microsoft OneNote, you might, if you're a note taker like me, you might be like, yeah, that might be a good idea. My Microsoft OneNote is off the chart long. I have so many notes. It's crazy. But this is one that you guys might appreciate. And by the way, if you don't know my songs, I've got, I'll put the link in, but I have a YouTube channel where I sing them songs. And again, I'm not saying I'm any good at singing. It's just, but it's called Harmonic Super Kids. I'll put the link in, but I'm going to, what do you call it? I'm going to pop the link in case you want to see that channel. You're welcome to see it. But this one, it says, I'll sing it to you. It's called Being a Little Kid is Hard Sometimes. Being a little boy is hard sometimes. The world is so big and I'm so small. I just want to run and play and jump all around. But sometimes all that I do is fall. Being a little girl is hard sometimes. The world is so big and I'm so small. I just want to run and play and jump all around. But sometimes all that I do is fall. I don't always know and I don't understand all the things that you have said to me. I like growing up, but I like being small. I just want to enjoy being me. Being a little kid is hard sometimes. I just want to know that you love me. Please hold me tight. Please understand. My heart is a lock and you're the key. I have these emotions so big and so strong. They make me feel so happy and so sad. I need your strong arms and your big happy smile. I need love from you, my mom and dad. And it's just like saying to the kids from the early days, I know that life is hard, and I'm not here to beat you up over it. I'm here to say, I understand. I understand. I understand. I understand. And I really, really, really want you kids to know that you are safe with me. This is my hands are going to be a safe place for you. They will never be ways to beat you up. My mind, my mouth will be a safe place for you. And that's just, man, oh man, my heart just aches to give that message so clearly. Anyway, if you do think that you'd like to hear any more of my songs, again, Harmonic Super Kids is there. I played with the audio back and some of them are like, wow, you messed the audio up. I know. I was trying to figure out how to use different audio programs, and some of them came out great, some of them did not. But I've got one really long one you might want to try for your kids if your kids have trouble sleeping. It's just called the Sleep Song, and it's just a long 12-minute song that just gets the song gets quieter and quieter, and the light, the brightness of the screen gets darker and darker. Just for 12 minutes, I just kind of drone on and on. But it's helped my kids a lot. They often say, "Can we hear the sleep song? It'll put us to sleep," and it does. Sometimes it puts them to sleep in a minute. It's crazy. Apple Notes, thousands. Yeah. Why am I crying? Thank you, Gene. Yeah, you just wish you could just protect them so much. Thank you so much, Shell. And Noel says, as the previous complementarian, what are the differences you think a deconverted father faces as he continues to parent differently? That's a good question. And I would love you, feel free to respond as well, from your perspective as well. Either you can jump on, or you can just type it in either way. But I would say for me, it's a little bit different in the sense that when I deconverted, it was pretty clear shortly after I deconverted that the marriage was on its way out, which is of course, endlessly heartbreaking. But complementarianism doesn't mean too much when you're a single dad, right? But I think one of the things that I would say it definitely helps me to do is to say, I look at the whole idea of gender roles differently. And I think it's really great to be able to be sending a message that, a woman's place isn't the kitchen, that we're not here to put women in some kind of subservience, and that men aren't in charge or better. It's obviously, as a parent, I'm in charge, and as a parent, I'm responsible, but not because I'm a man. It's not like that. So I think the gender roles thing drops, and you try to raise your kids to respect each other. I love the fact, as a quick side note, I tell my kids all the time, give each other a space bubble. You cannot touch their bodies unless they give you permission. We say that, we have to say it too much because they, sometimes they want to be fighting with each other, and it's like, we're not going to do that. We're going to be a family that respects boundaries. But in terms of if I had a marriage that had stayed intact and complementarianism was still applicable in that sense, I think to me, one of the most beautiful gifts you could give is, especially as a man, to give a gift to your daughters that you honor your wife the way same as you would have as a Christian man. Hopefully you honor her, but you don't honor her as some kind of lesser person or submissive to you. You clearly show that you are co-parenting in your marriage. You're not telling her what to do. You're not giving her these, I'm the man, do it my way kind of stuff. I think that would have been a beautiful gift to give to my kids. And it's obviously breaks my heart that they won't see that. I mean, I wish they could see their mom and dad dancing in the kitchen and loving each other. And they say that all the time. If we ever see a movie or a video or something where there's like a mom and dad dancing, or like Bluey, if you watch Bluey at all, there's stuff where they'll do like the smoochy kiss and the mom and dad are having fun and loving each other. They'll pause it and say, Daddy, we wish you and mom would have been doing that right now. They say it all the time. All the time. They wish that the marriage was restored. But, in that ballpark of topics, I think it would have been a great thing for them to see not just affection of parents, but more broadly just a respect for saying we're not here to do patriarchy. We're just not. And for my sons to know, you're not we're not raising you so you can be dominating over a woman and make her subservient to you or something. I think that would have been a great message to send. It's not like I can't still send that message, and I'm sure I do in some ways. It's just different, when you can't practically live it out in a marriage. But I guess that's just an invitation to find more creative ways to do it. So, but lots of stuff under that rock, huh? So again, Noel, feel free to answer that if you want to type anything out or so forth. Love to have your thoughts on that. I think just again, unless someone joins, I'm going to keep going with a few thoughts. I think it feels to me like when you deconvert, you become more emotionally available to your kids, and maybe you were already so emotionally available that it's not really that different. But I think a lot of us, when we're in Christianity, we learn to override our feelings. Maybe it's because we want to be focused on, the topics of the day that we all talk about in Christianity, the spiritual victory or the self-denial. Like, just forget about how hard the day is. Just give it to God. And it's like, no, let's just be honest with ourselves. And, sometimes parents, I think when they deconvert, have the ability and the willingness to sit with a child's emotions or sadness or even rage, certainly their fear and confusion, whatever it is. The child, my point is, a child doesn't have to rush to a tidy answer and be like, look, I'm all, my hair is all clean and I'm all, nice and tidy again. Am I okay now with you and God? Children can just cry, and it's okay. Doesn't mean that you don't still have boundaries and this and that, but it just means if a child's heart is in pieces, it's okay. You're there to wrap your arms around them, not to beat them up and say, just give it to God, or, stop sinning or something. Let their heart that's in pieces be something that you hold tenderly, and that they know they can come to you. Doesn't always work out perfectly, but I think, if you send that message long enough, it gets through. I think a lot of children too, who go through the process of the parents deconverting, or at least one parent deconverting, they find that, and this is where it can be painful, this is a hard part of it, is that you give your children more room to disagree, because you've clearly said, I, as an adult, used to have a worldview and a responsibility to agree with everything my pastor said and everything my parents said about Christianity. And I took the massive step as an adult to say, I firmly, strongly disagree. In fact, I don't just disagree, I vehemently oppose your worldview, and I will fight it tooth and nail. And like, you can't live that and not pass some of that bravery and strength and audacity onto your kids. They're going to learn it's okay to disagree, because, daddy did it on a massive scale. This is a part of standing up for what's right. And they learn that they can disagree. Sometimes they're being rebellious. Sometimes they're just, spreading their wings. Whatever it is, the idea of just, I'm the authority, so sit down and shut up. Like, that stuff, there are times when people do need to just sit down and let the teacher do the job, whatever. There's times for authority to be able to get the job done. I especially, I think, in a classroom, you can't have kids just, mouthing off to a teacher. I'm not saying there's not a time to be firm, but, for a child to have the freedom to sometimes respectfully say, I disagree with your perspective. I will honor you as my parent, whatever, as my teacher, but I have a different perspective. And for that relationship to still survive and to be okay, and you want your kids to be honest. You don't want them to just say, yes, sir, whatever you say, like the lip service. You don't want that. You want them to be honest with you. And if you don't have any room for disagreement, they're eventually not going to be honest with you. They're going to just lie to your face. Shell says, getting to have those early years be about learning about the actual world and not religion is wonderful too. I had trouble finishing homework, but was made to memorize lots of memory verses. Wow. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that too. Yeah, everything came back to religion, everything. Especially, if you're homeschooled and you're getting like Abeka and Bob Jones material. I mean, they try to weave in Jesus on every page. What's 2 + 2? 4. Okay, well, now let's talk about Jesus. What does 4 have to do with Jesus? Well, we'll find a way to bring him in. It's like, it's just everywhere. It's everything's about God. It's crazy. But I totally agree with what you're saying. think we kind of alluded to this a little bit, but I want to sort of say it a little bit more directly. You stop using shame as your parenting tool. A lot of parents are going to shame their kids as a way of bringing about conformity, at least outward conformity. Shame is, I mean, there's appropriate times for shame. We all should be ashamed at certain things that we've done or said. I'm not saying shame is never appropriate, but when it's the primary tool in your toolbox, it's just going to hollow them out. It's just going to empty them out and make them feel like they're anxious or they're split or they want to hide. The parenting question really becomes, how do I correct my child or steer them or guide them and help them without making them feel defective at the core? I want them to not go down the path of self-loathing and self-rejection, self-hatred. I want that to not be the case. In a similar sense, I think a lot of us become more concerned about our children's true state. Susanna was, I think, getting to this a lot in what she said, but just to put it a different way, you're not concerned about their image, and you're not concerned about their outward conformity. You're concerned about their inner world, what's going on inside, not the appearance, or the testimony, or their manners, or their supposed purity, and their presentation that's all shiny. You care less about looking like a successful family, and you feel more like you want to say, is my child safe? Are they feeling heard? Are they feeling whole? Are they feeling like they can thrive? This idea of I need everything to be polished and shiny, you lose it. It loses its appeal and its glamour, because you know that path can just ultimately be a way of concealing the truth. And you want the truth. You don't want the facade. I think a lot of parents might, this is maybe a lesser big item, but it's probably something that some people have thought through. I think some of us become a little bit more intentional about apologizing. You know what I mean by that? Sometimes I think in the ultra authoritarian homes, Christian homes, you kind of feel like your authority has to be like, I'm unquestionable, and you're like this tower and this bastion of strength and power, and you cannot question me. And I think, as deconversion obviously brings that in a lot of humility. I mean, you have to really eat crow to say, I have been dead wrong for 40 years. I mean, you're really humble. You have to really say, I can't believe it. But yeah, I've been dead wrong to the core for decades. That opening of the door to humility to say I was wrong also allows you to say that to kids, to say, hey, little Johnny, I was wrong. Maybe you can say, I scared you and I didn't mean to. I remember there's a Bluey episode where the dad's playing and he's playing a little bit too rough, and he does a great job of apologizing. And sometimes we just have to say to kids, I handled that badly. If you weren't hyper authoritarian before, maybe it's not a big deal. But I think, we at least can acknowledge together that a genuine apology is going to teach children that love and accountability are important, and that that's part of a relationship with them. So let me see here. It looks like I got another comment I missed. Let's see here 1 second. Shell says, the gospel isn't needed to teach empathy. There are so many opportunities to teach real world empathy, but not the unhealthy, give up the entire self kind of empathy in Christianity. Yeah, very, very well said. I love that. Love that so much. And looks like Noelle just jumped in. And Noelle, I know you might be just getting set up, but give me a thumbs up if you're ready to join. If you need a minute, that's fine too. Can you hear me okay? Looks like she's still getting set up. Noelle, when you're set up and you're good to go, just give me a thumbs up. I think one of the things, I'm going to give her another minute while she's getting set up, but I think it's important to raise your kids to trust their perceptions. We were so big on saying, you can't trust yourself. Your heart's deceitful and wicked, all that stuff. And just, submit basically to the outside interpretation of your pastor and your elders and your parents. To teach children to an appropriate level to trust their feelings and their instincts, their observations, steadily growing over time, obviously. Immature perceptions are by nature immature, but, to slowly grow in that. I think eventually at the right stages, it matters a lot for their safety, especially when you're bringing in issues of coercion and manipulation and abuse, to teach kids if something feels wrong and there's red flags, Explore that, understand why you feel that way. Maybe your perceptions are telling you something. Trust your heart. Don't say your heart is deceitful and wicked and untrustworthy. Say it's trustworthy. It may need some guidance and better information, but I'm not going to discount it just because it's human. Noelle, if you can hear me, give me a thumbs up if you're ready to join. Okay, we got ready to go. Hey, Noelle, good to see you.
Hey, good to see you too.
Thanks so much for joining. And I saw a lot of comments before, but great to see your face too. Did you jump in for that complementarian question, or what do you want to tackle tonight?
You know, I don't know if you're quite ready for the complementarian question.
Okay.
and by that I just mean that I've noticed that some of the men aren't really jumping on to this. That might have, you know, and there's a part of me that keeps asking myself the question: are men who are fathers and spiritual leaders in a different level of pressure where it's very difficult for them to go ahead and say, I don't believe this anymore. I don't. And then their pastors and their friends and their family members are looking at them saying, you're absolutely failing your entire family right now. Like, you might as well give them a one-way ticket to hell. Whereas I think perhaps for women, we look at it and there's a different level of pressure, because I mean, we there's definitely pressure, but it's not quite as extreme. And so just knowing that you used to come from a complementarian background, and so did I, and that was actually the first moment that I realized I think this faith is kind of bullshit, because it's saying that women are equal in value, different in role, and by different, that means lesser, less opportunities. She's not, men don't have anything to really learn from her. Like, there's no real partnership in this other than that he's leading the way and she's sort of following him, or possibly being drugged by him, as she also drags the children. And where is he actually leading, our whole family too? And because of that, I think I definitely commend you for being a man who looked at it, who felt like very convicted to be a great Christian and a great man of God and a great missionary, and then someday a great husband, and then a great father, to allow yourself the freedom to say, ooh, like, if I actually want to be a good and great father, that means I cannot follow the example of the God of the Bible as to what that looks like. And so I guess my question was because I'm a mom who left complementarianism and became a Christian feminist, and then ended up on the path to deconverting, and just the differences between us, where I felt like my ex-husband basically told me that I was failing him. That I was failing God by failing him by not submitting to his leadership. And then now that my children are questioning faith stuff, I am sure that you're experiencing the exact same thing with your ex-wife, is to look at it and go, they're saying so many things to people about how we're leading our children astray, when we're actually, like, in my opinion, leading them to have the ability to choose, the ability to look at this entire situation and say, what do you think is real? And if you don't know, it's okay to say that you don't know for your whole life. That's okay. Every day you get to wake up and realize, this is my life. Do I want to believe this? Go to that church service, have that conversation with a pastor or family member, or am I just, I don't want to do that today, and that's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with giving yourself the freedom and the space to figure out what you actually believe, rather than to submit yourself to another person's belief system and hope and trust that they might be right when they don't know either. So, I mean, those are my thoughts on it. I just was curious about you, because I know you're one of the rare ones, extremely rare fathers and men who are willing to just eat it and say I was wrong. I was wrong, and the way that I thought I was responsible before God to lead you, I realize is not. And I think there's a level of courage that comes with that. That just a lot of men who have grown up in the church as Christians who are parents have a really, really hard time letting go of.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to express it. And yeah, it's hard to think through it all. I mean, honestly, some days I feel like I'm still overwhelmed with all that's happened. But I think what's beautiful about it to me is just that you really do see that you had the susceptibility to accept some horrible ideas, and you were willing to live them to the end of your days and pass them on with pride, and to say, if it took me 43 years to see it, number one, maybe there's still some things I don't see, so maybe there's more garbage to get out. It's not about Christianity, but maybe it's something else about my personality or nature or whatever, the way I see the world. There could be something else that's also toxic or less than healthy. But either way, whether that's there or not, the reality is that at this point, it's like you've got such a beautiful gift in your hands of these children, their hearts, and it's like, what was done to you as a kid. And I don't just mean like spankings. I mean, just like what was done as the mind job to you. What was done to you with the mind job. And it's such an overwhelming privilege and responsibility to say, I have to at least try. Like, I know those horrible messages will still get to them different ways, but you just have to try. And I think the beautiful thing to me, I'm going to sit down here a second. I think the beautiful thing to me is that the longer I go in this, the more I think there's that sense of like, when we were Christians, we would say, they'll know we're Christians by our love.
Yeah.
We'd sing that too. I know it's sort of backwards in a sense and weird, but I think my kids would probably, if they were to use that language, and they don't, but if they were to use that language or that song, they would probably say it, but the opposite way. They'd say, we know Daddy's an atheist because of his love. And that to me is staggering. And I did a presentation on that like a year ago. But it's staggering that my kids associate atheism with kindness. They associate atheism with bodily and thought autonomy and safety. And they associate, and they they know that the idea of they'll know we're Christians by our love is the exact opposite of their experience for years. And so whether they get all the mythology in their heads in time, whether they understand all the ins and outs of what's going on, the fact that they can look at people who say, I left mythology, I left Christianity, and they can say, I can see your love. I can see your love just through and through. And compared to religious people, you atheists are head and shoulders above the rest. You atheists are truly head and shoulders above the rest. I'm not saying there's not some bad eggs in our group. I'm sure there's people in our group that still, tend to be abusive. It's just the nature of the beast. But at the same time, I think that by and large, from my vantage point, what I'm hearing and seeing, and I hope I'm right, what I'm seeing more and more is that atheists are being much more attentive and empathetic to kids' needs, and Christians are digging themselves in a bigger ditch and doubling down and saying, no, we're going to stand firm. We're going to stand firm, of course, in the Word of God and on the gospel, but we're also going to stand firm that children are sinners who need to understand that if you don't discipline them in this physical way and through shame culture and all that they will not be prepared for the truest parent up above. And that if you basically are teaching your kids to disobey you as a human parent, then you're teaching them to basically give the middle finger to God when they become old enough to have that accountability with him. And it's like, that's you have to avoid it at all costs. They must be prepared to bow the knee to you because they must be more prepared to bow the knee to God. And it just, you see that and you think, oh my goodness, like, what are we doing? And yet on this side of it, like, they see the difference. They see that is so toxic. And they see that it's people that escape that are so full of love and safety and just honestly, just good old fashioned people. Like, I feel like, when I was growing up, it was like Christians were the salt of the earth, the good old fashioned people. They were the They were the Waltons, and they were the Ingalls, the Little House on the Prairie. Like, that was what I grew up with. They were the good people. They were the salt of the earth. And it's like it just shifted so much. Like, the salt of the earth people right now are the non-religious. And the religious people are the weird people who are doing so much damage, both in their families as well as in politics and in our culture, with MAGA and all that. It's like, man, oh man, like, they will know we're Christians by they will know we're atheists by our love, and they'll know we're Christians by our hate, and by our all that toxicity. So it makes your job easier, because all you got to do basically is show up, listen, and love, and not judge them, and you win. And that's hard. Obviously, I'm making this overly simplified, but if you show up and you love them and you treat them right, you win the game, if you could say it that way. And Christians, like, they cannot see that they're like literally destroying. While they say we're building a strong foundation and a heritage, you are literally destroying it all. You're destroying the foundation and your heritage. It's just in pieces. It's ravaged, not in spite of you, but because of you, and because of your worldview, and because of your actions. And when kids have nothing but Christianity, they don't question that. But when they have a clear distinction of, like, okay, there's two paths, I can see both paths on a regular basis, I can see where each one leads. Once they have that comparison, there's no comparison. It's amazing. How are your kids? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
How are your kids doing with it when you sort of talk a little bit more directly about your worldview at this point?
So my kids are a little bit older than yours. Your oldest is 11. My youngest is 11. I'm sorry, did Owen turn 12 yet?
No, he just turned 11 in January.
Okay. Yeah. So, both in 5th grade though, right? Yeah. So, and then my oldest is about to graduate high school, and that has been wonderful to just watch him and my 13-year-old as well, who are into science, and they're interested in how the world works and chemistry. And the weekends that my ex-husband has them and they have to go to Sunday school, they are asking the hard questions. And it's just, I sit there and I'm like, oh, so proud. They're like, how did we know what happened when the world was made if nobody was there? Things like that. And why do we trust these people who said they saw these things, or God told them these things? Like, they could just be like, have a vivid imagination, and yet they're asking these questions. And I think because of that, I think the biggest thing for me when it came to deconverting was being able to know that I can finally think for myself. And as far as like the difference between being raised as a Christian child by Christian parents and now being a deconverted person, atheist, agnostic, there may be something out there, but maybe not. I don't know. I'm fine either way. I grew up as a child that had thoughts and opinions just like my kids do. I had a lot of questions and I was curious, and I didn't feel like my parents cared to hear me or listen to me. I felt like they felt like it was their job to teach me things because I was just a kid. And they had no faith or trust in me, in my brain, my own thought autonomy, to give me any space. And so they controlled everything I watched and listened to. Every single word that I said, they analyzed the tone and let me know if it was disrespectful somehow to them or God or whatever. And I just constantly felt like, okay, who I am is how they see me. And so therefore, if they're happy with me, then I'm good. And if they're unhappy with me, then I'm bad. And so I just felt totally unheard. I didn't even know I had a voice or was supposed to be heard for my whole life. And so the big difference, the way that Christianity and deconverting from Christianity has changed the way that I'm raising my children, is that I'm listening to them. I finally am listening to them. I did not know how before. I thought I was just supposed to they were supposed to be this vessel that I poured all this stuff into and hoped that God made it make sense and that God would be happy with me for blindly pouring whatever crap I was pouring into them. And now, as a parent, it's allowed me to give them the freedom to just talk it through and say anything and ask ridiculous questions and give them a little bit of wiggle room, a lot of wiggle room to know that is their absolute right. And in every way, shape, or form that I can, I want them to know that I appreciate those thoughts and I'm listening. I am listening. And so that's the difference. That's the big difference because in some ways I don't want to blame my parents for everything. Their generation grew up super wacky. I think that they just had so much fear instilled in them that their kids were just going to grow up and become drug addicts and get pregnant at 12 and, get all kinds of AIDS and, all these things. Like they watched a lot of their siblings, at those ages die and go through that stuff. And their parents they might have gone through stuff where they watched that and they thought this was the solution. But being a generation, underneath them, I could look and say, okay, this is what I wish my parents would have done. And so breaking free from how they did parent me causes me to be a different kind of parent for my kids. And I'm hoping that, I know that my kids are going to have issues. I'm not saying I'm a perfect parent in any way, shape, or form. And I'm sure we're going to be in therapy together someday, but it will not be because I imposed my belief system on them. That's not going to be the reason why. And I think because of that, I'm completely informed to parent my children in ways that my parents missed the boat with me. And there are times that I've faulted from them for that. And there's times I've been like in adulthood, like, hey, I'm just letting you know, like how you thought that this was going to have the impact, but I was really hurt or damaged or traumatized when you spanked me and screamed at me and called me names and like had these big, huge, like long conversations with me about how I didn't make my bed well enough. And so therefore I was defiant. And that meant that I had like this black heart that I needed to deal with God. Like everything was this big spiritual, monstrous issue. If I didn't do things up to their standard, they felt like because I was failing them, I was failing God, which led me to a place where every single time in my mind that I failed anybody, I imagined that I was failing God. And so the result is perpetual shame. And you can't thrive in that place. You just cannot. You're super humble and super invisible and super miserable. And it's just, that tends to be the result of evangelical Christianity in, to be honest, most girls who become women's lives. While my little brothers were always encouraged, someday you're going to be a leader, step into this role, be this strong man, you got to do better than that, these types of things, where women were sort of constantly, girls were sort of like, you don't really have a voice, and that's the way God likes it. And so because of that, it's, when looking at how I parented differently, my kids had to watch me level up against their dad, essentially, and be teaching them a message of equality that they could not see him trying to live either. They were like, well, church isn't so bad, right? And like, but it's weird. I never see any women in leadership roles. And, I never see like any women on the list to be deacons or elders. And, the last question's like, how come I've never like seen a gay person become a member of the church? And it's like, well, that's the church your father is taking you to. And you're not going to see those things there because they don't believe in that, even though they're not going to yell it, real loud because they know it's like offensive. From the sidelines in the background, that's the message that's going to be preached all the time. And I will not live underneath that bullshit anymore that says that women's voices have less importance than men's, and God says so. And so as a woman, I've had to just break free from that and say, I don't really care what my ex-husband believes. I don't really care what all these people believe that I went to church with forever, that told me who I'm supposed to be as a wife and a mother. And it's hard because those kids are still going to that church from time to time. And their peers and other people are viewing me as some sort of rebellious Jezebel mother, to them. And so I've had to let go of a lot of those expectations that I wish other people looked at me and thought that I was this great mom, rather than the fact that so many people that I knew for so many years just now think I'm poisoning my children. And, so a big piece of it is just saying, who are these children that I'm raising? And who am I as a mother? And that's all that matters. That's it. That's the crux of it. Nothing coming from the outside of it makes a difference, to the extent that I do not give a shit what my ex-husband thinks about conversations that I have with them. And when they do come to me and say, this doesn't make sense, or I don't really understand that I say to them, I am so proud of you for asking those hard questions. No more am I going to protect Christianity by trying to help them to have a good relationship with their dad. They're too damn old for that. And it's just, let it be what it is. And when they ask me the hard questions, I'm going to answer the hard questions. And I'm also going to say, this is how I feel about it. And you have the room to now feel how you feel about it. And when you do, please tell me, because it's all I want to know, and I will never, ever, ever disapprove. Unless you say that you're a Christian and you need to be baptized in the blood. Then I'll be like, no. That's the only thing I would not wish for you. But
Exactly.
Pretty much anything else, I would be like, all right. I know you. I trust you that you've thought it through, and I'm listening. And I'll continue to listen until the day I die. And it's my honor and my privilege, because I want to hear everything that you have to say if you'll let me.
I love it. I've got to admit, I got distracted by twice you said the phrase "I'm listening," and you probably know where I'm going with this. I love watching Frasier, and as soon as you said that, like, welcome to KACL, I am listening.
I'm listening.
But no, it's true. It's very true. It's so pivotal to our conversations with our kids and to how they speak. This sort of their inner talk. I love how so much of what we're thinking through in topics like these, we're also directly affecting their self-talk. We're changing the way that they talk to themselves. And when you talk to them kindly, they learn to talk to themselves kindly. And that's such good news. That's the gospel. Talk kindly to yourself.
Exactly.
Well, I appreciate you jumping on. I was going to say real quick before you jump off, I'm going to wrap up in a second. It looks like no one else has joined, so I guess it's just our party tonight for the wrap up. But I missed this one from Shell earlier, so I'm sorry about that, Shell. But she says, we like affirmations and the boundary song from the Hopscotch Learning channel on YouTube. Affirmations, so much better than being told you're totally depraved and in need of saving. That's awesome. I don't know the Hopscotch channel, so I'm going to find that real quick. And that way, if anybody wants to go check it out here, put that in the links. 1 second. That's okay, Hopscotch songs. Interesting. I will have to show my kids that. I don't think I've seen that before, but so if anybody wants to check it out, if I've got the right one, I think I do. Just Hopscotch songs. That's probably the right one. But yeah, they've got ones like "This Is My Body." I like that. "It's Okay to Disagree." "I Am Enough." "Everybody Makes Mistakes." Yeah, good stuff. Very good stuff. I like that. A lot of good messages there. Thank you so much, Shell. If you're still I don't know if you're still here, but thank you so much for sharing that. Again, sorry for missing that earlier. Good stuff. Let's see here. The last thing Mark said, I popped it up for a second, but I'll pop it up again here. Mark says, trust your heart is so foundational, being able to set your own boundaries. Yeah, for sure. Well, I feel like I've got so much I want to say. I almost feel like whenever we talk about parenting and parenthood, it's like you're opening up Pandora's box of all the things to say. But I was going to say, since you're here, if you don't mind, I'm going to bring up one more topic, and I'll see if you want to add anything to it, and then we'll wrap up for the night. One of the things that I feel like happens when you go through this process of deconversion is that you begin to sort of, how should I say it? You begin to realize that when you do this thing of parenting, the whole parenting arena becomes a place of sort of breaking your own heart open. Because for me, when I go through parenting and I look at the way I was parented and what I was taught, that despite the love, I mean, especially from my mom, who's still with us, but and despite how much she offset the horrors of my dad, the reality is the messaging of the biblical worldview took away my innocence and my comfort and made me feel so bad and so wicked from such an early age. And I think in many ways, when you deconvert, you find yourself sort of grieving your own childhood at the same time that you're trying to create a gentler childhood for your kids. And it's a fascinating thing. And it's not like you want to, there's like a motif that I've seen in some shows or movies where you can tell that like a dad maybe is cheering for his son, maybe his son's on the football team and he's cheering for him. And they kind of develop it in a way where you can see that what's happening here is not just the dad cheering for his son on the football team. What the dad's doing is cheering for his own self, who as a kid tried to be on the football team and failed as a football player. And in seeing his son live out these dreams, he's kind of reliving his own childhood. You know what I mean? I've seen that motif in different shows, but it's almost like you're not trying, I hope, to like live through them and to reclaim, yourself in one sense. You're just trying to let their life be their life. But it's at least hard to not say, I'm so intimately acquainted in my head with how much it hurts to be raised that way, the way I was raised, that I feel like while I'm doing these, making what I think are really good choices, I'm literally helping you, my children, but in helping you, it's hurting me to realize my life was stolen from me. And that's something I think I say to myself every day, but my life was stolen from me. And in many ways, I feel that even to this day, that there's certain things that are happening that like my life is currently being stolen from me. But like my life was certainly stolen from me as a kid. And I think parenting kids becomes almost a place where you're learning to reparent yourself and to grieve. And so anyway, this just came to mind as one of the offshoots of what I go through. But did you have any thoughts on that? And then we'll bring it to a close.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do. I have an identical twin sister, and so we were raised, we call each other womb mates. I'm Noelle and she is Nicole. And we would fight sometimes when we were like little kids. And then at some point, I remember her saying to me, and I totally agreed. She's like, we're the same. We look the same. We sound the same. We feel a lot. I mean, we're different people, but like we're so similar. She's like, why would I ever want to hurt you? It's just like I would be hurting myself. And like, what's the point of that? And, very few people grow up with an identical twin. So when you do, you kind of know your own face. Like, you look in a mirror and you see a reflection, but you look at a twin and you're like, whoa, that's, you hear your own voice talking to you all day. Sometimes she leaves me voicemails and I'm like, did I leave myself a message? It's just, and even our opinions are very similar. And I think there's something to be said with raising children, especially genetic ones, that remind us of what we were like at that age. And I think there's a big, amazing, huge part of healing that comes for all people, but especially Christians who have deconverted, that looks back and looks at the inner child, the child that we were when we were terrified of demons and hell, and it's up to you to save all your little friends, from my dad reading Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God from the pulpit, and watching all these like videos that were, if you die and you didn't tell it everybody you're going to go to heaven and they're going to go to Left Behind movies with like Kirk Cameron and all that. You got to figure all this stuff out when you're young. And I think that level of pressure that was put on me as a child, when I look at my own kids, I want to give them freedom, because those were chains. We were given this responsibility to be the children that our parents thought we should be, because we thought that God wanted us to be. That from the youngest of ages, we thought that we deserved the death penalty. Essentially, if it was a modern day thing, oh, I was born, I'm alive, I said something I shouldn't have said or lied, so therefore I probably should be in a little tiny electric chair somewhere, but I mean, that's the real crux of it, is when they put up that picture of Jesus on the flannel graph and said, this is what you deserve, and in detail, like, talk to you about like what it meant that Jesus was whipped, and the crown of thorns, and the fact that he was so thirsty that like he was like being tortured and they just gave him vinegar, and like all these things, these components that basically point you to the suffering of Jesus, which is a very grown-up adult concept, but we were supposed to believe that it would really happen. And not only that it really happened, but it happened because it was what we deserved, because of what we did. And that just truly does not make sense in a modern day justice system that looks at it and says, if you steal something, this is what you deserve. And if you tell a lie, you have created a rift between yourself and somebody else. And like, there was just no, it turned the God that we are supposed to worship into this petty monster, and I think because of that, like, just looking at how I view that terrified child, I just remember like being in my bed, there was a thunderstorm, my parents tried to tell me it was the angels bowling. At the same time, I was like, I think the demons are coming for me. My parents have told me that they have prayed a hedge of blood protection around me while I sleep. And I'm like, that's terrifying to imagine. What is a hedge of blood? But, that whole thing that I could look at and say, I can still save myself. I can still save myself from believing that a minute longer, that that's what I deserve. And then I can also save my child from ever really feeling like that's who they are and who we're meant to be, and that's what God would want from them. And I think, in a sense, being able to look at my children as a sort of extension of myself, in that we share genetics. They've known me since they were born. I've known them since they were born. That we'll always be connected somehow. That they will feel as though their mother sees them as good. A good person, truly good, from the moment they were born until the moment that they die. They're going to be, as far as I'm concerned, my eyes are concerned, good. And that I'm always going to be with them as they make choices that sometimes they might have not made the best ones, but that I truly look at them and believe that they're still trying, and they're going to continue trying and getting better and better and better at loving the people around them and being a person of integrity and having a moral sense of, themselves and the world around them, that they will be doing everything that they can to make the world a better place, because they're in it. And that, to me, is like the best I can do, and I think that when I look back, I imagine, and it sometimes makes me cry or think about crying like it is right now, that I want to be the parent to my children that I wish I would have had. I wish I would have had a mom like me. I wish I would have had that feeling of like acceptance and warmth and trust and openness and freedom, and that I could have asked the questions, and that I could have felt like they loved me even when I messed up, that they weren't like just consumed with anger and frustration and this like intrinsic need to correct me, because if they didn't, I was hellbound. And so I think because of that, that's been the connection that I've made, between how do I remember the child that I was, and then think about who the children I'm raising, who they are, and then be able to heal myself and that inner child by being the parent to them that I wish I would have had. I guess, like, I'm kind of trying to pull that together, so I hope it makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. I love the way you put that with, especially the part about wanting to be the parent for your kids that you wish you had had as a kid yourself. It's amazing. Even I would say, even in a even more simplified sense, you want to be the kind of person that you would have needed as a friend when you were younger. You want to be that person for for other people, but also just for yourself. You want to be your own, friend that's comforting you. But you want that for your kids too, and the way you parent. And I couldn't agree more. It's so critical. But I love that in this process where you're focused so much on giving them less toxicity and giving them a chance to thrive, and on healing them before they even get hurt, in a sense, that as much as we know we can't go back in time and redo it and get a second chance, it is still very healing. I mean, it really is very healing. And it's part of our journey, almost of the shadow work we've been talking about, of like, you can't go back to your childhood, but you can try. You can talk through it as if you could talk to your 5-year-old self. But the closest you're going to get to it in real life is to talk to your children the right way, and it's interesting how that becomes part of our healing process, even though our focus are so much on making sure they don't get hurt in the first place, that they don't have something to heal from that's so bad. But it certainly can be healing for us. So
Exactly.
I just love the idea of being able to say, like, how do I put it? I love the idea that someday my kids will notice the difference between their upbringing and Christian children's upbringing, and for them to be able to say, like, oh my God, I was so close to being stuck in that shit. I was so close. And literally they were close, not just in the sense, like a generic sense, not just in a generic sense, but like literally, like, because of me. I didn't deconvert until my oldest one was like 3 or 4.
Right.
So I was right on the precipice. I mean, right on the precipice of going hardcore new indoctrination. And again, I wasn't in it halfway. I was a 5-point Calvinist. I was a fundamentalist. I wasn't into the Christian nationalist garbage. But that's, there's a few differences, but and I wasn't ultra patriarchal, but by any stretch at all. But it's still like the core was the Bible's word of God. The gospel is required to get into heaven. You must believe, and the best life ever is to give your life to Christ in every which way, live for him. I was right there, ready to shove that bullshit down their heads and in their brains. And right at the most critical moment where it's like, if you're going to stop and fix this, you got like 5 minutes left. Like, I was right at that edge. And with 5 minutes to spare, sudden death overtime, whatever you want to call it, I got out at the last minute, right before it became too late. And man, oh man, I think my kid's going to look back and be like, oh my God, we got so close to getting sucked into this stuff. Wow. Like, just 2 or 3 more years of it, and we would have been, and for sure 5 or 6 or 7 more years, we would have been so deep in this stuff. I mean, you never know. maybe they would have said, I still don't, I know mom and dad, you still both believe, but we don't. It could have still panned out differently, but more likely than not, I think there's a good chance they would have gotten sucked in.
Well, either way, if they recognize that or not, if they're able to say, wow, this could have been so different, or the other option is, I didn't really notice a difference. I didn't really see a contrast because my other parent normalized it for me and made it so natural to imagine that, like, maybe I can decide this for myself. And, in so many ways, we as parents are breaking those patterns that, our parents before us thought that they were doing the right thing by engaging us in this faith. But then at some point, like, we had developed way too many critical thinking skills, too much of an appreciation of science and innovation as it was coming towards us. And as the internet started to become a thing, we could reach outside of our little set of encyclopedias and our bookshelves full of different versions of Bibles and other Ryrie books and James Dobson and all that, and just have a little bit of freedom to go ahead and read something a little different that was outside of that bubble that said this is what you need to believe in, is all right in here in this house and in this church. And I think at that point we were maybe a generation that was able to kind of say, you know what, I'm going to test this. I'm going to test this thing. I'm not just going to abandon it. I'm going to study and hope to hell that I have not wasted my entire life, and then at some point when something feels really true and real and you say, this God, Yahweh, is no different than Zeus. Jesus Christ, half man, human, isn't really different than Hercules or Odysseus, or, and all these things that come together and sort of go, these are stories. Why did this one particular one stick? And maybe I don't need to know why it stuck, but maybe I just need to look at it and go, well, it's not going to stick with me anymore. And the generations that come behind me that will hear me and care about what I have to say because they look at my life and see this is a good person with integrity who treats me with kindness and other people with kindness. And maybe they'll look at Christians and go, why aren't you so nice to people? We'll go ahead and go, okay, I'm testing this. And might we on the side of the atheism make sure that when we're tested, we are shown to be the loving ones, the ones that pursue truth, the forgiving ones, the ones that lead with grace, and I'm hopeful. And that's where I get my sense of morality from. So many times I think with Christians, they ask atheists, where do you get your morality from? Like, why aren't you out there murdering people? And I'm like, you need to try atheism for a minute, because that is not how we feel. And if you go ahead and look at all who the serial killers are and the pedophiles and you're going to find them usually in evangelical circles, because there's a lot of sickness there that hasn't been looked at. And that's maybe why it thrives in those systems. So,
yeah, agreed.
Yep.
And a lot of pretend and double lives that it leads to, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the system, for sure.
Yep.
Heartbreaking. But well, thank you so much for your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
It's always good to see you and always good to hear your thoughts. I just want to commend you and Susanna and all the other people here, with Shell and everyone else joining in, and Mark. Just so many of us trying our best. We're not going to be perfect. We're going to mess up. We all do. We all screw up. We all don't always get this parenting thing right. It's hard. But you know what? To me, if you get a couple big things right,
Mm-hmm.
it'll land okay in the end. And if you get the big things right of teaching them how to think correctly, and not correctly, but to think well, and you be able to be skeptical. And be able to, look at claims and truth claims and say, how do I know that's true or not? You look at that's given that, so a few tools in that toolbox of skepticism. You certainly give them the huge toolbox of love and acceptance and safety, autonomy, and a few other those things that we're talking about. I don't think they're going to be too far from having a really good foundation. We're all going to look back and say our parents weren't perfect, but just be able to say, you know what, I was like a plane that I got a pretty good launch off into the atmosphere, and this is good. So that's my heart, that's my goal, and hopefully they can look back. I mean, I hope I live a long time, but whether I live long or they have to, if I die earlier and they just have to think of my memories or look at my videos and remember me, whatever it is, I hope that every time they look back, they'll say, my dad gave his all, and he loved to love us. He loved to think about what we need, and I know you have that same heart for your kids. So it's beautiful to do it. It's some days it's such hard work. It's like, oh my God, I'm so tired. But at the same time, it's like there's nothing better than to love on your kids. There really isn't.
It becomes a reason for living, to be honest. Like,
Yes.
it's when you're living for God of the Bible, a lot of times your children end up being sacrificed in a sense. You sacrifice your time for them. You sacrifice your own sense of kindness and towards them because you've got this in your head. You've got to teach them all this stuff. But I think leaving Christianity makes you look at your life and go, well, these are my people. That's God is not my God. God's not their God. That's just us. And to be honest, like, in so many ways, it makes things seem so much clearer when you can look at each one of your children and say, I'm not going to see you through the eyes of a very unforgiving God, a relentless God. I'm going to see you through my eyes, and I'm going to love you, and I'm going to care about you, and I'm going to listen to you. And that's going to be the history that we have together. And that's hopefully going to be the memories that you have of your childhood and me as your parent. And I think to answer the question, that's the big change. That deconversion, I think, parenting children pushed me towards deconversion. It really did. And then once I deconverted, it changed who I was as a parent. And so they just have so much to do with each other. It's a huge, massive topic and shift in my entire life. It changed everything for me, and it also made my life so much better. And like, it made their lives so much better too. So I can't even begin to look back and act as though I would change anything. So even though it's been horrible at times.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I completely agree. It's good stuff. Good stuff. Well, thank you so much, Noelle. So good to see you in here. Again, as I say all the time, if you do see another topic tomorrow night or whenever night you're free, anything that's on your heart, feel free to jump in again. It's great to get your insights. So thank you so very much.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, anytime. Have a great night.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll just wrap up here as well with a few quick comments that I missed. Thank you again, Noelle, so much for being on. And just a few quick comments, then we'll call it a night. And Harper C says, sadly, by the time I deconverted, most of my kids were adults. Yeah, that is hard. I've heard that a number of times from people. Mark says, me too. I deconverted too late after my kids are grown and gone. Yeah, at that point, all we can do is just try and focus on the relationship more than anything else. Being on the mission field, I was ignorant of neurodivergence, and it was getting my youngest diagnosed when we came back to Australia that helped me come back to reality. That's awesome. So glad you got them some help. Mark says, I served with Australian missionaries in Indonesia. I had a special bond with a 4-year-old kid who had ADHD. It wasn't until much later in life that I discovered I am AUDHD myself. Yeah. I didn't do missions in Australia myself, but I went through there for a minute to sorry, I didn't put that comment back up. We kept reading, but I didn't put it up on the screen, everybody. My bad. But I was just saying, I did go through Sydney, Australia for just a minute on my way to New Guinea. But love to get back to Australia someday. I actually want to, I hope it's okay to say it, Australians, but I want to get back to Australia, but I also really want to get to New Zealand. I want to see some hobbits in real life. Mark says, the Christian worldview spiritualizes our behavior so we don't understand neurodivergence or psychology. Yep. And Harp sees, me too. While learning how to understand my youngest, I saw it was from me, and all my kids have it to some degree. Wow, yes, neurodivergence runs in my family too. I wish I understood more when my kids were younger, though. I'd have been so much more supportive. Yeah, I think we all we all can look back and say, man, if we knew better, we would have done better. And hopefully from this point on, we can all just do our best. But thank you all so much. It's been great to see your comments and the people that are able to join on the live stream. Thank you so very much. And just in terms of giving you a quick final word, I just want to let you know that tomorrow night, the live stream, which one did I pick? I think I picked a good one. Give me 1 second to look it up here. Yeah, tomorrow I've got this one for you know what? I might change that, but what am I going to do tomorrow? I might shift this one to tomorrow, but there's one I'm coming up with. I think I've got it scheduled right now for the 7th, but I might switch it to the 3rd, or I'm sorry, to the 4th. But the question is, oh, you know what? I see. Never mind. Scratch that. Start over. The one for tomorrow I've got is, what do you wish Christians understood about your deconversion? And the reason that I put that up there was, I think it's an interesting question to ask, that a lot of us think that Christians really don't listen to us, and they don't. We don't think that. We know that. We experience that. They don't really care. But there's this ache in our hearts to say, I wish they could hear us, and I don't mean just listen with their ears. I mean truly hear us. Just like Jesus says, those who have ears to hear, let them hear. You wish that Christians in our lives had ears to hear, and that the scales could fall from their eyes, and that once they were blind, they could now see. But the question of, like, if you could get through to that inner sanctum of a Christian's worldview where they'd say, I'm truly listening, respectfully, I'm ready to listen. What do you want to tell me? What would you say to them? And if they weren't defensive, if they weren't saying, fine, I'll listen to you for a second, but then I'm going to tell you the gospel and shove it down your throat yet again for the 1,000th time. If they're just like, no, I'm not going to shove the gospel down your throat. I'm just going to listen. I have nothing to say tonight. I'm just going to listen and absorb and try to hear you out. If Christians were ever willing to just hear you out, what do you wish you could say to them? So that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow night. If that appeals to you at all, please jump in. We'd love to have you in the comments or the live stream, and I will talk to you all tomorrow. I'm trying real hard. I know I mentioned that sonnet. I'm trying to get the sonnet done. I'm not quite happy with it. I'm not trying to be a perfectionist, but it's not quite ready. I will try to record it if possible. Fingers crossed, maybe tomorrow, hopefully Sunday at the latest. I think it'll be an encouragement to you, and I think it'll actually inspire some of you to write the same kind of stuff. So we'll get there. Anyway, thank you all so much. Love you all. Thanks for being a part of my life, and let me be part of yours. Have a great night. Talk to you soon.